What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, arm yourselves, life stuff. Jealousy is the primary topic today, but there are a few other topics I want to hit, subtopics. We'll see if we get to them. When you're doing YouTube stuff, you need to develop a thick skin. As much as anyone can, anyway. You don't want to get tilted anytime anyone says anything cross. However, one of them got to me recently, and I needed to work on why that got to me. So, someone said I and this channel were like or are like a gay Don Jolly. Now, Don Jolly is a YouTuber or a figure in the young dudosphere, and although our channels and styles aren't the same, if YouTube had finer categories or genres, we'd be pretty close. Academic backgrounds, modern culture focus. And at first, I brushed off that unfriendly comparison. My numbers are better, I've been doing this longer, I'm still active, and we hold the same level of degrees. And from what I gathered, our academic skill sets are similar. It sounds like he was studying modern religions or cults with a wider religious background, but the tools taught sound a lot like literary critical method, which, now that I've been exposed to corporate, basically means corporate. Once you've had exposure to corporate, it's hard not to realize everything is corporate all the way down. There are corporations in the quantum realm. Anyway, that internal parry got it off my plate for a little while, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I've been thinking about it for about a month now, on and off. Why, of all things, does that bother me? And I realized a few things in investigating this feeling. Firstly, Don Jolly's time, numbers, and activity are lower than mine are, but he has more clout than I do. You might, or my audience might not recognize the name Don Jolly if I'm just saying it, but if you saw his face, you know who I'm talking about. He's the guy who discussed academia and debt and loans with Sam Hyde in the back of Sam's truck. And MDE and Sam Hyde are such cultural icons and have been for so long now that one appearance is enough. Not just because there was an appearance, but because it was a very good appearance. Part of the reason that comparison bugged me is now I feel like I'm in competition with someone I admire. And not in any actual competition, of course. This is all in my head. He's done good work and has been largely recognized once. I haven't been recognized, and I don't have that clout, despite everything, and that irritates me, even though I was trying to convince myself it didn't. And then that got me thinking, why does that bother me when there are tons of people who are very successful? Well, in one of the later St. O'Neill tapes, Mark Maron had a great take on jealousy. He said, I don't get jealous of people who are successful. I get jealous of people who are successful and are like me. Now, again, our channels are not identical. Don Jolly leans more into his academic background, and in terms of styling, he does the crusty, bright colors thing, like a Cruelty Squad, like an MDE, or like a lot of incel-core artists. He's also more political and more interested in consumer corporate rather than organizational corporate. But if YouTube had genres for YouTubers, I would bet money we would get stuck in the same category. Solo voices commenting on the issues of the day. So Hard statistically, I'm doing better, but in hearts and minds, I'm not. And that's what counts. And that inadequacy is what I was protecting myself from, unsuccessfully. It's really obnoxious watching similar people succeed where you want to succeed. And that realization got me thinking about another thing. Why am I not satisfied with myself, with my successes, and what I have? Because while I'm not super successful, I do have stuff going on and I am proud of it. But why don't I feel proud of it? Well, I think there are two reasons here. One is recognition exactly. I'm doing everything I do because I despise human beings and I want to get above and beyond them. Yet, because of my own putrid mental makeup, I want to be revered by the people I hate. You think about your fantasies sometimes. If you could get exactly what you wanted, many hating people will say their fantasy is to earn enough money to disappear into a cabin in the wilderness. And I have had that fantasy, and I still sort of do have that fantasy, but really, I want to be standing on a golden throne, pissing on people, and being thanked for it. Thank you, Skimmerlit, for pissing in our eyes. That's what I want. Getting away from people is no longer enough. I want to hurt them and be revered for it. Which you can do. There are people who do that, are doing that, but I'm nowhere close to that yet. So seeing a similar person who has already won hearts and minds agitates me. And then the second part of that, I don't value myself or my own accomplishments. And this is confusing because I do value myself and my own accomplishments. I've come to love myself more than I think I'll ever be able to love anyone else. But I also feel worthless, like I don't deserve to be alive, like none of my accomplishments are actual accomplishments. And praise I receive when I receive it doesn't. Well, it's not that it doesn't mean anything to me. This is another confusing thing. I want praise, I want that reverence, but at the same time, who are you to bestow praise? Who are you? Why does anything you say matter? You know what? It's a lot like an addiction. I need this, and it's easy to mistake the feeling of satisfying a need with the feeling of feeling good. I need it, but it's not going to feel good, and in fact, it's probably unhealthy. Imagine the sort of person you hate. That's not the sort of person you want to receive praise from, because that makes you suspicious. If someone I hate is praising me, I must be doing something wrong, because if I were doing something right, they would be hating me. But you still need that recognition from them, even though you're going to hate it and it's not good. I'm not enough for myself, and that is very confusing. In moments like these, I'm reminded of Apocalypse Now. Redux. Am I an animal or am I a god? You're both. And that's one of those things you can say, and that might be the case, but it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't click the way an answer is supposed to click, which means something's wrong, or not enough time has passed for it to make sense even though you have the answer. And I know this all ties into NTR somehow, and that fascination has been a lifelong labyrinth. you know you're cooked in Nutland when this isn't something you've learned, this is something you've had carried with you as long as you can remember. And with that, there are so many levels to it. When it comes to fetishes, it's never just one thing, if you were born with it. So, thinking about this, the way it ties in here, it's not the carnal level, obviously. It's not the betrayal level. It's the inferiority level. Why do I feel jealous of people similar to me achieving in ways I can't or haven't? It's not just not having that badge on your sash if you're in scouts. I think inadequacy is one of the words, keywords. I'm missing something I should have. Not in the deserving sense, but in the quality control sense. You're defective. And if you can't get up to snuff, then your job becomes to change the playing field or to break things. A couple weeks ago, I was fixating on Syndrome from The Incredibles. I haven't watched that movie in a long time. One of those clips came across my feed, and Syndrome, it seems like he's dropping truth bombs every time he opens his mouth, from his first appearance to his last one. And resentment is another keyword we have added to our repertoire over this last year. Holy shit, this year is almost over. It's not just resentment of individuals you compare yourself to. I think it's also resentment for the ecosystem that is setting the standards in the first place. It's really frightening how easily I could have kept my head low and lived my entire life as inferior by a standard I had no say in. And now that I'm realizing you are not doomed to whatever you were born into, you can climb, you can get higher, you can get above people. I think that jealousy is a desire both to win the game that, or whose win conditions are not aligned with the rules you're presented, and also to destroy the game and everyone playing it, or to make everyone playing it miserable, to put everyone down into that awful, humiliating position. I need capital and votes. I'm using war as a business to get elected so I can end war as a business. Saucy Jack. There's way too much happening here emotionally to put a nice bow on it. But I think this sort of jealousy is being reminded of dissatisfaction in a way that hits close to home. It's demoralizing, but it's a motivator. It feels bad, but it feels good. I'm fumbling here because I can feel a simple equation that would answer all this, but the formula or the thesis isn't in numbers or words, it's in experiences. And I can feel it, but not in words. I am praying to find the traction I'm looking for. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.